What's going on, you heathens? Today we are checking out a video on my favorite jet or plane, or whatever you want to call it. Favorite plane in the US military, the F-18. So let's jump into it.
Today's video is brought to you by Manscaped, the premium brand for men's grooming and hygiene products. Every day,
You have a really nice voice, sir.
Manscaped asks men a simple question. When you look around your bathroom and shower, do you like the huge collection of drugstore brands, or are you still using that same overpriced deodorant?
I do kind of want to. I need to get some Manscaped shit.
Naming no brands in particular, but one is definitely in my mind. Manscaped is changing the game. Going beyond the groin, if you will. Look, lots of men know Manscaped for their great products designed specifically for their Johnny Cochran, but there's a lot more available these days than just the trims yesteryear. So check out their bundle kits. We've got the perfect package 4.0 right here, which includes, of course, the Lawnmower 4.0 waterproof trimmer. You'll notice no charging ports on this thing. You just pop it in the dock. Also contains essentials like the Crop Reviver, the Crop Preserver, a ball deodorant, ball toner. Now, if you're ready to upgrade to the starter set,
I need to get this because some ball deodorant would go pretty fucking well in the summer.
Got that right here. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Oops-a-daisy. And if you're looking to stop all of the needless drugstore runs, Manscaped's got you covered with their Platinum package, everything you need from the previous bundle, plus the ultra premium shower products, which I also have down here, as well as an underarm deodorant stick. And best of all, when you buy any bundle, you not just get one, but two free gifts included, including the Shed luxury leather travel bag and some very comfortable anti-chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. Right now, you guys can take advantage of a big Black Friday sale. Head to manscaped.com and get 25%
honestly, I'm gonna have to fucking
with free international
get
shipping,
some
plus those two free gifts when you
Manscaped
use the code
shit.
MGP20. Again, that's promo code MGP. Megaprojects MGP20 at manscaped.com. Thank you, Manscaped, for sponsoring. And now today.
Thank you, Manscaped. You've always seemed pretty chill whenever I hear people talk about you.
There is perhaps no category of American technology, from cars and trucks to personal computers to even the very rockets that touched the face of the moon, that has captured the imaginations
USA
of
#1,
nor
bitch.
instilled a sense of awe and terror in the whole world, quite like its military aircraft. From the swaggering P-51 Mustang of World War II to the lumbering A-10 Warthog or the muscular predatory F-14 Tomcat, American warplanes have thrilled generations of little boys and girls, but if we're honest, it's mostly boys. Yep. I was one of them, with their dangerous looks, their devastating weapons piloted by
so
devastatingly sexy aviators. These assassins.
Like, God, I remember, wasn't really, weirdly enough, I wasn't really a Top Gun kid. I was more of a Iron Eagle kid. I used to watch Iron Eagle quite a bit. And then also, weirdly enough, Flyboys. Flyboys was a fucking movie I used to watch all the fucking time because I was super into the fucking flying and like World War I and shit at the time. I used to watch like Flyboys every night.
In the skies are the backbone of American power, capable of striking and destroying targets anywhere in the world.
Hell yeah. Fucking sexy.
For decades, to Americans and really to every nation on Earth, the life of a fighter pilot was one lived on the edge, where anything was possible. Accidents were frequent and frequently catastrophic. Great deeds were a daily occurrence. On the decks of great hulking aircraft carriers and an environment soaked in jet fuel and testosterone, the American aviator was king. But the American aviator may have been king, and he was also vulnerable. Perhaps then it was something like a sigh of disappointment among purists that the US Navy, that supreme organization of air superiority on Earth, first introduced the world to the FA-18 Hornet in 1974 amid the very last gasps of the Vietnam War. The world of the sky would change forever. Gone was a certain thrill.
I'm weird for that, but God, I just think they're fucking sexy.
The old American warplane, and in came an era of stability, of cost-effectiveness, and of safety. A boring
so fucking
era.
Nice. I don't know why, but the F-18 is...
If danger defines the
said
golden
in one of my
age
previous
of the
videos,
American aviator,
probably Battlefield
then
3.
the Hornet signified the end of that age. For above all things, though it was fast, flexible, maneuverable, powerful, and durable, the carrier-ready, multi-role fighter-attacker FA-18 was safe. It was born into a new era of naval aviation, an era in which the most valuable assets the US Navy had would be the pilots themselves. Born of a long,
as they should be,
unfulfilled dream, the FA-18 Hornet was built to supplement and eventually to replace the vulnerable but slow Grumman A-6 Intruder attack plane and the expensive Grumman F-14 Tomcat, the same one immortalized in the first Top Gun film, by the way. And it was to do this.
And then the F-18 is in the second one.
It represented the leading edge,
which it shouldn't have been, but
fourth generation of American fighter/attacker aircraft. It combines the agility and reach of a Tomcat with the deadly accuracy and firepower of the Intruder, and it did it all in a package that was both smaller and yet more powerful than its predecessors. To these attributes, it added simplicity.
Can't wait till it's added to War Thunder.
Fewer parts than a Grumman F-14, reliability with an accident rate a mere fraction of the previous generation of Navy fighters, flexibility with the ability to act in air defense, scout role, electronic warfare, and other roles.
Fucking
as
sexy ass multi-role.
Capable of sustained service with only 1/4 of the maintenance hours of an F-14 and costing just a fraction to build. This, added to its smaller size, meant that the new FA-18 could be deployed in much greater numbers on the decks of Navy carriers, fly many more sorties than previous craft, and serve many more missions than any single existing plane. Yet it would take many years for the FA-18 to capture the public imagination in the same way that the other assassins of the sky once had in storied decades past. For all that it was flexible and ingenious in its design, the FA-18...
But for whatever reason, like I said, it had to have been Battlefield 3. I remember when my brother got it for me for, I don't remember which birthday, but he got me the premium version so we could play together. But I played the campaign almost religiously because I loved it so much. And the F-18 mission was by far like my favorite. Because it was such a cool concept of, yeah, we've done flying missions before, I believe. But the concept of playing as the Wizzo was super fucking cool. And just, I don't know. I don't know why. It's just such a stark thing in my mind and is cemented my love for the fucking plane. Like it really has. I'm like, the A-10, of course, but is also up there. But I think the main plane before the F-18, what would it have been? It was either the F-16 or the F-22. It's like the F-22 was seen in quite a few movies, but mainly the main one that comes to mind is Iron Man 1. But I don't know why. It just is, but the fucking F-18 is just the thing in my mind. I love it.
A-18 was just never as sexy as the A-10 or the F-14.
I mean, personally it is.
Mean in the way the public believed a military plane should. If anything, it seemed a bit meek and unassuming. Compared to the Tomcat, the Hornet didn't leap off the screen, even when featured in hit films like Independence Day or Behind Enemy Lines. An underappreciated workhorse if there ever was
Behind
one.
Enemy Lines is another one that I saw that I always watched all the time.
A bean counter's dream of a thrift store aircraft, but later nearly universally admired among aviators, the FA-18 has become one of the most successful designs in aviation history, and it did it all without really winning the love of the public. It's all rather sad. So today
it won my love.
We're going to give you some reasons why the FA-18 is perhaps the single greatest American military aircraft ever designed, making it way cooler than you thought. And just as a quick note here, we'll be referring almost exclusively in this episode to the FA-18 Hornet and its variants that predate the larger evolutionary design, the FA-18EF Super Hornet, which for the purpose of this video is a separate aircraft. However, as there remain a small number of existing F-18 Hornet, A-D, or other rare variants in service around the world, we'll be referring to the
continue saying it throughout this episode and any other video. I love it.
Despite the fact that the vast majority of original Hornets have been retired as of 2019. When the US Navy flew its final sortie of Hornets D, we just had to make a decision, and that's how we're running it in the video.
Why F-18? Or 17,
by the early 1970s, it had become clear that the age of dogfighting in which dashing ace pilots matched wits toe-to-toe in small squadrons of maneuverable fighters was becoming a thing of the past. Fast improving radar and future plan missile systems like the AIM-120 AMRAAM promised a future in which air combat would occur largely over great distances, usually further than visual range. At the same time, the advent of sea and air-based cruise missile systems and stealth technology, such as in the B-2 Spirit, in large part spelled the end of so-called area bombing, in in which large wings of bomber aircraft dropped hundreds of bombs over their targets, defended by a few fighter aircraft. Air-to-air dogfighting was swiftly losing much of its relevance by the end of the Vietnam War, and the air superiority type aircraft was largely relegated after 1975 to defending carrier groups or very occasionally escorting cargo airplanes. There just wasn't that much use anymore for the King of the Sky, Grumman's F-14 Tomcats, which must have been a disappointment to the US Navy, it having invested tens of billions of dollars in the plane's development. With a top speed of Mach 2.4 and as many teeth as a great white shark, the Tomcat was truly the reigning monarch of the sky.
Well, I was about to say, it's also kind of a fucking multi-role, but at the same time, you could say the same thing about the F-16, but the F-16 is more considered air superiority. It could do ground mission CAS, but okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the F-14 too, but
Sky by the late 1970s,
it isn't my favorite.
But it was a kingdom in decline. The Tomcat had been built just in time to be made irrelevant. Indeed, through the entire life of their service worldwide, spanning nearly 50 years, the F-14 Tomcat managed to shoot down only 5 enemy planes in air-to-air combat. 5 kills in nearly 50 years. Just for context, in the Top Gun series, Tom Cruise's Pete Maverick Mitchell is purported to have shot down 5 enemy planes across his entire career. And with 712 Tomcats ever having been made, and 68 accidental deaths directly attributed to the F-14, the plane was far deadlier to its own pilots than it was to an enemy in the sky.
Yeah.
The Tomcat was not only increasingly irrelevant, but also somewhat of a liability for the US Navy. The F-14 was expensive, hard to service, and complex in its design. It was also quite large, which is an obvious problem when you're deploying planes from an aircraft carrier. In addition to all that, the F-14...
That was one thing, like, I get the whole wing design, and, you know, you can make it smaller and whatnot for carriers, but overall, it was a pretty big fucking plane. It never really understood the whole, let's make it for Navy. Air Force, sure. Navy, it was a little weird for me. But then again, I mean, it's Navy. Personally, I feel like the fucking Navy should put, or the Marines should get A-10s. Beef up the landing gear, give it a fucking tail hook. Launch that bitch off a fucking, off a carrier. I think that'd be cool.
Had never been equipped with any kind of ground attack weapon system, and though that would come later in the 1990s and 2000s, by then the planes were on their way out, replaced with the Hornet or the new F-22 Raptor stealth fighter. The Hornet,
sexy.
Despite entering service later than the F-14, actually began development at pretty much the same time in the mid-1960s. While Grumman was working on the F-14, destined to be the Navy's mostly wasted air superiority fighter of the future, then rival Northrop was developing their YF-17 concept, a radically redesigned fighter project that emphasized speed and agility over firepower and size. The original concept plane would be made out of aluminium and carbon fiber composite, making it light and lightning quick, with 2 extremely powerful turbojet GE-15 engines, the product of over 1 million man-hours of development and 5,000 wind tunnel testing hours. To develop the YF-17 into a versatile fighter-slash-attack aircraft, Northrop partnered with McDonnell Douglas, who strengthened the airframe and added folding wings, catapult, and hook attachments to make the plane suitable for carrier operations. In addition, McDonnell Douglas also added 96-gallon fuel tanks to each wing, which added 4.5 tons fully loaded to the now nearly 17-ton aircraft, leaving it still lighter than the F-14 by nearly 10 tons.
Jesus, I didn't realize the F-14 was that fucking heavy.
It suffered from a significant problem not yet faced by any other military aircraft, one that caused Northrop to begin work on a brand new system that would become the world standard. That problem was G-forces. The FA-18's twin engines together offered up about half of the thrust of the Mercury rockets.
We'll say this, funnily enough, even though the F-18 is my favorite fucking plane, I don't know like really anything about its development or anything like that. Like I know more about the F-15, as you saw in my last video, in one of my previous videos. I know more about that and some of the other planes than I actually do about the F-18, weirdly enough. So this is really interesting to fucking look at.
That brought the first Americans into space. Though it would never be as fast at top speed as a Tomcat, the Hornet could fly with the seeming alacrity of its insect namesake. The F-18 would be one of the first military planes capable of accelerating straight up towards the sky without stalling. The light and powerful FA-18,
Hell yeah!
after the added weight of fuel, weapons, and carrier hardening, was capable of over 9 Gs of acceleration, more than any service plane ever built before, and unmatched by any until the introduction of the F-22 Raptor in 2005. This made the FA-18
eat your guys' heart
capable of
out.
a turn rate of 19.2 degrees per second, under an average load of fuel and weapons, meaning it could make a 180-degree turn at full speed in under 9 seconds, very nearly as fast as the F-14. And the Grumman F-14 was no slouch
that's so
itself.
fucking cool.
It was a powerful air-to-air weapons platform, and its variable sweep wings made it highly maneuverable, but its weight and size made it capable of pulling no more than about 6 Gs of acceleration. In contrast, the FA-18 had a much tighter turning radius, since it could turn at lower speeds before accelerating again with its powerful afterburners, and its low weight and high acceleration meant that it was punishing for pilots to control at full tilt. Imagine flying a jet fighter so powerful and so quick that turning too hard to the left or right would result in a concussion as your head snaps to the sides, or that can knock you senseless just by thrusting the engines and pulling back the stick. Pilots reported broken ribs, whiplash, concussion, and other injuries just from the G-forces that the FA-18 was capable of generating. Northrop had to develop the world's first fully digital fly-by-wire system with quadruple redundant backup systems just to make sure that the G-forces themselves didn't rip the plane apart or render it unable to be controlled by a pilot who finds him or herself blacking out while experiencing
That's so fucking cool.
force. This phenomenon, frighteningly known as G-lock, could create a situation in which a pilot was overwhelmed by the force of the plane's acceleration and would be unable to release the control stick to level out the plane. Thus, the FA-18 became the first plane ever to feature an adaptive auto-leveling autopilot feature, which was capable of recovering the plane from a spin that had rendered its pilot unconscious due to extreme G-force. A plane that can knock you senseless and break your bones. This little fighter bomber was, in other words, a bit of a beast to drive.
Sounds like my kind of fucking plane.
All right, we've talked a lot about how the Hornet stacked up against the Tomcat. Well, one of the main points of interest to the US Navy especially was cost. The F-14 Tomcat was undoubtedly the finest air superiority machine of its era, but it was also quite expensive. Not only was each plane pricey at $38 million,
you want the best cost to
$200 million in today's money,
cost
but so were parts
or whatever you would call it,
as the plane needed to be frequently serviced and rebuilt. The F-18 would eventually reach a unit cost of just $29 million. That's $56 million today by the mid-90s. It was also much cheaper to operate, requiring only around a quarter as much maintenance and having fewer than half as many parts. It consumed significantly less fuel, and this combined with its ability to carry up to 5 external fuel storage tanks and to be refueled in the air made it extremely
this was actually super fucking cool. Using a fucking another Hornet as a fucking
long-range
fueler.
Scouting and air defense alert roles in addition to its combat duties. These were among the reasons that the plane was adopted by the US Marines and Air Force in addition to the Navy. The cost effectiveness meant that more Hornets could be deployed and more quickly, allowing carriers to operate longer in theater while flying more sorties than ever before.
Actually, he mentions the Air Force. I don't think I'm trying to think. Maybe the Thunderbirds? I don't really remember ever actually seeing like any real pictures of Air Force. I remember seeing really pictures of Air Force. What's it called? Hornets. Let me look at the picture real quick. Okay, so they were a bit more boring. They weren't really as... Weirdly enough, fucking Navy and Marine Corps fucking planes are a bit more... Oh, I know them more so on site than the fucking Air Forces. You know, like from their
cost of fuel
color scheme and all their decals
and planes can be used more, and they have been. FA-18s have carried out nearly 5,000 sorties over their service lives, with only 3 planes being lost, including 2 pilots being killed. Again, this is nearly double the number of sorties for the F-14.
Well, I know I had one of them. I think it was an F-18 anyway. I don't remember. I was listening to the Unsubscribed podcast yesterday because I think they just released it. He talked about how they smoked our own F-18 during the Gulf War, I want to say, unless it was an F-16. No, it was an F-18. It was an F-18 pilot. Because for whatever reason, they were instructed to dive towards the airfield when they were coming back, and the air defense system assumed that they were missiles and shot at them. One of the F-18s got hit. Some reports say he ejected then drowned in the lake, but it's not really known whether or not. But yeah, so we smoked our own jet. I know that's one of the deaths I believe he's talking about, which is super fucking sad to hear about. Because another incident that happened at that same base was an F-16 pilot. Did he get shot out of the sky by the same base, by the same air defense? I don't remember, but he came up on... No, he didn't, because it came back, the air defense recognized him as friend. But he didn't know it was there, and he shot our own SAM site.
Tomcat, and it's an astonishing,
I believe, is what I remember him saying.
Fewer deaths during
HLC.
their operation. Despite being giant death machines that fly through the sky at nearly double the speed of sound, flying the F-A-18 is statistically safer than driving a car. Another of the major safety features is the Hornet's innovative heads-up display, or HUD, which, when combined with later upgrades such as full-color electronic maps, laser rangefinders, and automated target-designated computers, makes a single F-A-18 pilot capable of flying and deploying complex ordnance or other complicated tasks all alone.
Hell yeah.
According to its chief historian, Dennis R. Jenkins, in F-A-18 Hornet, a Navy success story, the Hornet was proven time and time again, including during one incident in which it took direct hits to both of its engines, but still managed to fly over 200 kilometers back to base, be repaired, and be flying again within a couple of days. A US Navy Hornet's entire engine assembly could be changed in the space of just 20 minutes with no specialized equipment, meaning even heavily damaged pieces could be fixed right on the deck of a carrier.
Dude, that's so fucking cool.
I've already mentioned
that's such a good design, too.
A quarter of the maintenance of the F-14. It could also serve much more frequently and for longer periods. Hornets regularly served up to 8 months or longer in the US Navy in near continuous use, doing tours of duty in the Persian Gulf, the South China Sea, and the North Atlantic. A Hornet, properly maintained, could spend up to half of its time in the air, allowing pilots to spend as much as 12 hours in a single day operational if necessary, far more than any other carrier-based plane is capable of doing.
Yeah.
The name of the game for the F-A-18 has always been flexibility.
It's the F-18 kind of like the
virtually any
kind of, I want to say, kind of like the Navy's F-15.
Its various forms.
It's the Navy version of the F-15, more or less.
Flavors, including 1-seat and 2-seat versions, land and sea-based, as well as planes specially designed for electronic warfare, carrying radar jamming equipment, and planes specifically designed for scouting, with laser rangefinders or other equipment in place of their standard cannon. It also served for decades as the demonstration plane of choice for the world-famous Blue Angels, the U.S. Navy's flight demonstration squadron.
I wasn't sure if it was me or my brother, but I remember playing with all the time. We used to have a model plane of the I forget which Angel it was, but I had a model plane of their F-18. I remember back when I used to take baths as a child. I used to play with this bitch all the fucking time. So fucking cool.
Which adopted the Hornet in 1986.
That just unlocked a fucking core memory for me.
Gets in on the action. Operating the X-53 variant of the F-A-18, its high-altitude research vehicle used to demonstrate early thrust vectoring vane technology found on later versions of the Hornets, those metal slats that change the shape of the engine exhaust to keep the thrust distributed evenly. The F-A-18 is so flexible that it has even been adopted for dozens of roles in 8 countries, including Spain, Australia, Switzerland, Finland, Canada, and Kuwait, where they're still in use today. Even Malaysia has 34 of them still in use. But by far the biggest customers have always been the US Navy and the Marines, the latter of which still operate over 250 of the planes today. The Navy retired their fleet in 2019. Through its various configurations during its service life, the F-A-18 saw upgrades to its engines, computers, radar,
hell yeah, Marines, sticking with the fucking good old
systems. It was capable
sticking
of being
with it.
configured for use in any kind of weather and could load dozens of different types of ordnance and other payloads, from camera equipment to fuel pods.
So fucking versatile.
This plane just does it all.
This plane fucks.
One of the key attractions of the F-A-18 was its ability to carry a vast array of weaponry. It has an exceptional 11 hardpoints, meaning spots where weapons can be attached to its hull, and it can carry scores of combinations of weapons designed for any possible mission. This, in contrast to newer, stealthier planes like the F-35 Lightning II or F-22 Raptor, neither of which is capable of carrying more than 4 bombs or missiles, seeing as they need to do it inside the protection of their radar-resistant
Yes, but you
hulls.
can hook them up externally.
What the US Navy has gained in stealth,
But at that point,
in range and fire.
But at that point, if you want to do the whole external fucking gun, external loading and shit, which you can do, at least on the F-30, you can do it on the F-22. It's not as common, but on the F-35, it's a bit more common. But it also just kind of makes it a bit redundant for going all in on stealth and then, oh, you want to carry more fucking munitions, then you have to negate your fucking stealth.
Power.
Seems just
the
a bit
Hornet most often carries
stupid.
AGM-84 Harpoon or LRASM long-range anti-ship missile capable of taking out an enemy ship from beyond visual range, as well as AIM-9 Sidewinder and AIM-7 Sparrow and AIM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air missiles, along with the of its standard Vulcan 20mm cannon. The FA-18.
I love the fact that the fucking Vulcan is in the fucking nose.
And look, we're not going to go into every single one of those weapons, as each of them could probably qualify for a video of their own, and let us know in the comments if you want that. But suffice to say that if it goes boom, the Hornet could probably deploy it for you. It has the capability to bomb ground targets, shoot down airborne targets, dogfight, kill
HLC, I want to say it was HLC who talked about it. He's like, yeah, no. Basically, if you could fit it to an aircraft, then just in general, the US would probably fit it to any of its aircraft. But the F-18 especially, it was basically, yeah. If you could put it on an aircraft, the F-18 probably could carry it. We probably fitted it with the F-18 with it at some point.
Marines hit ships at sea and carry smart bombs, laser guided bombs, dumb bombs, cluster bombs, basically a bomb that's pregnant with several dozen smaller bombs, and even small tactical nukes. Yep.
Hell yeah, that's my F-18.
The Hornet, much forgotten and not a little unloved during its long life, was a better plane than most remember. Yet, as in all good things, the Hornet
is insanely loved by me,
and it has seen that time fading. The last variant of the original Hornet chassis was manufactured way back in 1999, but hundreds of examples continue to play their roles across the world. Perhaps it's fitting in a way that Top Gun Maverick would introduce the world to the Hornet's successor, the FA-18E Super Hornet. If you've just now fallen in love with the humble fighter/attack, have no fear. The future remains bright for at least the descendants of the Hornet. Since 1995, McDonnell Douglas and subsequently its parent company Boeing have been building its successor, the FA-18E, and the F-A-18F Super Hornet.
Oh, thank God.
Though it shares the name and designation of the old F-A-18, was redesigned from the ground up to introduce boatloads of improvements that engineers had thought up since the Hornet first entered service. Love it or hate it, or even if you just think, meh, it's clear
I
that
fucking
the
love
original F-A-18 Hornet, as well
I love
as
both.
its Super
I love
Hornet
the Super
Spawn,
Hornet and
will
the
remain
Hornet.
relevant in the world of air-to-air and air-to-ground combat for many years to come.
I'm very in love with it. Like, I am very much so in love with it. I've got to say, I was not disappointed. I fucking love it still. And it's so great to see. It is so fucking great to see that love getting pushed more into the mainstream. I'm so happy. I fucking love that plane. God, I'm so happy. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want to continue seeing me. And until next time, take care of yourselves.